After a fruitful phone call that left Mr. Gerald Hayes jubilant, I found myself reflecting on my adeptness in maneuvering finances. With my expertise, I seamlessly navigated the transfer of over $10 million across 4 countries and through the channels of 12 banks, effectively laundering his funds and shielding him from any prying governmental investigations. I am Thomas Parker, a figure esteemed for my prowess in money movement, asset concealment, and safeguarding individuals from legal repercussions. I maintain a strict policy of non-involvement in my clients' affairs, thereby insulating myself from scrutiny by federal authorities and ensuring my ethical compass remains steady. While I'm aware of the nature of my clients' activities, I adhere to the principle of don't ask, don't tell. My endeavors have not only yielded substantial wealth, but also established me as a master strategist in financial matters. Currently, I manage 16 bank accounts spread across 8 countries, maintain 10 crypto wallets, and operate a company that oversees my assets, including my residence, vehicles, and all expenses. Drawing a modest salary of $50,000 annually from the company covers my incidental expenses. By ensuring the company generates a nominal profit to maintain legitimacy and flies under the tax radar, I shield myself from civil liabilities, lawsuits, and potential divorce settlements, as my documented net worth remains minimal and my income is conspicuously low. Many of my clients, recognizing the value I bring in resolving their financial dilemmas, have offered me various incentives as tokens of appreciation. These gestures range from women to trips, even protection, virtually anything one can imagine. Until now, I've declined all such offers. However, my current circumstances have necessitated that I reconsider, leading me to accept assistance in surveillance, protection, and employing certain assertive strategies. My business associates, eager to reciprocate for the services I've rendered them, were enthusiastic about lending a hand. At home, my wife Melissa perceives me solely as a financial advisor, which is accurate to a degree. Holding certifications as both a certified financial advisor and a CPA, I fulfill that role. However, she remains unaware of my earnings, the extent of my assets, or the existence of my offshore accounts. All she knows is that our company covers the expenses for our $5 million estate, vehicles, and living costs. The topic never arose because Melissa leads a comfortable life without the need for employment, enjoying a new luxury car each year and an unrestricted budget for shopping and entertainment. Throughout our 5 years of marriage, Melissa appeared content and cherished our time together. She exuded happiness, particularly in our intimate moments, where we shared many memorable experiences. Yet, unbeknownst to her, a figurative Category 5 hurricane loomed over our paradise. Melissa and I embarked on a 2-year courtship before tying the knot at the tender age of 25. Now, 5 years into our marriage, Melissa had just celebrated her 30th birthday. Possessing a stunning figure with long legs and a captivating face, she could easily be deemed a trophy wife by many. Her blonde locks and mesmerizing blue eyes drew attention from men wherever she went, often sparking flirtatious advances. Yet she proudly displayed her wedding band and a dazzling 3-carat diamond ring, signifying her commitment to our marriage. Prior to our marriage, I discovered that Melissa had dated a man named Jason Nelson during her college years. She had been deeply infatuated with Jason, but he wasn't inclined to settle down at the time. Instead, he enlisted in the Marines, leading their relationship to gradually fade away. However, it became apparent to me that Melissa had never truly moved on from her feelings for Jason. Now, 8 years later, Jason had returned to our town after completing his military service. Upon his return, Jason naturally sought out old acquaintances, including my wife. Melissa had always been under his spell, and upon obtaining her cell phone number through a mutual friend, he began texting and calling her, attempting to reconnect for old time's sake. It had been 6 weeks since Melissa's behavior began to shift, a change likely spurred by the guilt of her clandestine communication with Jason. While her newfound attention to me, even in intimate moments, was appreciated, it deviated from her usual demeanor. Although Melissa had always been attentive and lively, her actions now hinted at something amiss. I resolved not to passively wait for answers, and instead kept a closer eye on her. During a weekend barbecue, A friend casually mentioned Jason's return to town. It dawned on me that his arrival coincided with the alterations in Melissa's behavior. The following day, I reached out to one of my trusted associates in business and confided in him about the situation, seeking his assistance. He eagerly offered his support, recognizing an opportunity to reciprocate for the financial gains I had secured for him and the legal troubles I had helped him avoid. After providing him with all relevant details, he assured me that his team would promptly look into the matter. Utilizing their expertise in navigating the deep and dark web, alongside various surveillance techniques, my associates compiled a comprehensive 4-inch file on Jason Nelson. The dossier contained an exhaustive array of information, ranging from his birth certificate to college transcripts, family lineage, and military service records. I found myself in possession of a dossier more detailed than what his own mother might possess. I also received a daily printout of his text messages, which revealed an alarming frequency of over 15 messages a day sent to my wife, Melissa. Although the means by which this information was obtained remained a mystery, I refrained from probing further. Initially, the messages appeared innocuous, typical of old friends catching up. However, within the first week, they took a sexual turn. While I was relieved to see Melissa rebuffing his advances initially, my concern grew as his persistence wore her defenses down, leading her to reciprocate his flirtations. My indignation towards this predatory behavior intensified as it became evident that Melissa still harbored feelings for this individual. It was clear to me that trouble loomed on the horizon. After 4 weeks of relentless flirting and text exchanges, he managed to persuade Melissa to meet him for lunch. The audacity of his request for her to dress provocatively, citing his longing for her, left me seething with rage. To my dismay, Melissa not only agreed but even suggested forsaking her undergarments, reminiscing about past encounters. My fury reached a boiling point, prompting me to seek counsel from my business associates, who offered advice on how to handle the situation. Together, we devised a plan to confront this individual while they were together at lunch, ensuring there was someone nearby for protection if needed. Through the meticulous surveillance conducted by my friend's team, we pinpointed the exact time and location of their rendezvous, allowing us to prepare accordingly. Thursday, June 16th. Entering the restaurant, I immediately spotted them nestled in a secluded corner. My heart pounded as I took in the sight of Melissa, dressed provocatively in a low-cut dress without a bra, fueling my anger anew. They sat side by side in the private booth, their backs turned to the rest of the restaurant, appearing altogether too comfortable in each other's company. I noticed a burly figure trailing me, presumably one of my backup plans, as I approached their table. Both Melissa and her companion looked up as I greeted them. "Hello, Melissa," I said calmly as I slid into the booth opposite them. The imposing figure who had been following me was now discreetly positioned several tables away. Meeting Melissa's gaze with a friendly smile, I inquired, "Won't you introduce me to your companion?" Tension thickened in the air as I locked eyes with Melissa. Jason's expression betrayed confusion, while my wife's face registered a blend of shock and guilt. Despite her attempt to retract her hand from Jason's grip, he held on firmly, his smile morphing into a smug smirk, signaling his defiance. It was clear that the audacious flirt wasn't about to yield. "Honey, this is Jason Nelson." "Jason, meet my husband Thomas." Melissa's voice quivered as she made the introduction. Her nervousness was palpable, contrasting sharply with Jason's smug demeanor. He remained silent, wearing a smirk that seemed to taunt me, silently asserting his dominance as if to say, "I have your wife, and there's nothing you can do about it, buddy." Without hesitation, I addressed Melissa directly, trying to maintain my composure. "I hate to interrupt your lunch, but I need to speak to my wife privately for a few minutes. Would you mind stepping out of the booth?" I requested, my tone steady despite the turmoil within. Reluctantly, Jason released her hand and vacated the booth, allowing Melissa to stand up, clutching her purse protectively against her chest. She stood between Jason and me, visibly uneasy as I guided her towards the back of the restaurant, heading towards the bathrooms. Her silence spoke volumes, laden with guilt and apprehension about being caught in such compromising circumstances with Jason. I led her into the empty men's room, where the tension hung thick in the air, ready to address the situation head-on. "Melissa, why aren't you wearing a bra? And that dress is far too revealing. I can't comprehend why you would disrespect me like this," I admonished, frustration seeping into my voice. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stood there, silent and trembling. Taking hold of the dress at her waist, I gently turned her towards the mirror, forcing her to confront her reflection. "Is this how you choose to present yourself when I'm not around? Melissa, what exactly are you playing at? Are you trying to portray yourself as some sort of town prostitute? This behavior is utterly unacceptable for my wife," I stated firmly, my disappointment evident. In a desperate plea, she cried out, "No, it's not what it seems like. I know how it looks, but I have a valid explanation. Once I explain, you'll understand, I promise," she stammered, hastily pulling down the dress that had ridden up too high. In a tone laced with authority and a gravity she had never heard from me before, I spoke deliberately, each word carrying weight. "It's evident we need to address this situation. If you harbor any desire to salvage our marriage, you will adhere strictly to my instructions. However, if you choose otherwise, don't bother returning home, as our marriage will be irreparably severed. Right now, you will take your purse, exit this establishment without so much as a glance at your companion, and proceed directly to your car. Drive home, prepare a pot of coffee, and await my return. I shouldn't be more than 10 minutes behind. You are forbidden from contacting your boyfriend or anyone else until we have had our discussion. I will handle the explanation for your departure." I noticed she avoided meeting my gaze, likely consumed by guilt over being caught in this situation. "Should you fail to comply with my directives, don't expect to find shelter at home tonight. I will contact you with further instructions on how to proceed from that point forward. And one more thing, do not change out of that dress. I want you waiting for me exactly as you are now." The narrative is told on Melissa's behalf. Oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? When Jason reached out to me, I was initially relieved to hear he was safe and out of the military. I always worried about his well-being. Jason was my first love, and it took me a long time to move on after he left me all those years ago. Although our romantic feelings had long since faded, I still harbored a deep care for him. I know I love Tommy, and he's been the center of my world since we met. I would never want to jeopardize our relationship or cause him pain, which is why this situation is tearing me apart. Jason's flirtations and sweet words tapped into a part of me that I thought I had buried long ago. He had a way of making me feel like a knave schoolgirl again, and I loathed my inability to resist his advances. Despite my efforts to rebuff him, his persistent flirting and constant messages eventually wore me down, leading me to agree to meet him for lunch. Engaging in these conversations with Jason filled me with overwhelming guilt and self-loathing. Deep down, I knew I was betraying Tommy's trust and our relationship. I should have been honest with Tommy from the start, informing him about Jason's return to town and our communication. Keeping it a secret weighs heavily on my conscience, and I regret it more than words can express. Jason possesses a certain charm that draws me in, and when he requested I wear something alluring, I found myself agreeing despite knowing it was wrong. I hesitated, grappling with guilt over even considering dinner with him, let alone donning such a risque dress. Yet his persuasive words left me unable to resist. Despite my inner turmoil, a text from Jason expressing his anticipation to see me pushed me further down this path. Although I struggled with the urge to confide in Tommy, I rationalized that a simple lunch for old time's sake wouldn't be significant. Just a fleeting reunion, as Jason put it. He had a way of coaxing me into things, even against my better judgment. I'll admit, seeing him in the restaurant stirred up a mix of emotions within me. There was a peculiar yet exhilarating sensation fueled by my lingering attraction to him. I always sensed a unique chemistry between us, and now, after 8 years in the Marines, he appeared even more irresistible, a mass of rugged, handsome muscle that could captivate any woman's imagination. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as he pressed his lips against mine, guiding me into the secluded booth. It felt like a blast from the past as we shared laughs, reigniting a sense of familiarity that made it seem as though he had never left. Happiness and excitement bubbled within me, his hand enveloping mine on the table, providing a sense of security and warmth. In those fleeting moments of laughter and enjoyment, Tommy's sudden appearance shattered the illusion. Suddenly, there he was, standing before us, then seated across from us with a chilling grin etched across his face. Dread washed over me as I realized the implications of our intimate moment in front of Tommy. His gaze fell upon our intertwined hands, and my heart sank as I witnessed the mixture of pain and fury in his eyes. I yearned to bridge the divide, to express my love for him and erase his anguish, yet I remained immobilized by guilt. The disdainful look he cast upon me shattered my heart. The man I had spent 5 years loving now regarded me with revulsion, witnessing me entwined with another, an ex-lover no less. Paralyzed by indecision, I sat there, unable to utter a single word. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as he pressed his lips against mine, guiding me into the secluded booth. It felt like a blast from the past as we shared laughs, reigniting a sense of familiarity that made it seem as though he had never left. Happiness and excitement bubbled within me, his hand enveloping mine on the table, providing a sense of security and warmth. In those fleeting moments of laughter and enjoyment, Tommy's sudden appearance shattered the illusion. Suddenly, there he was, standing before us, then seated across from us with a chilling grin etched across his face. Dread washed over me as I realized the implications of our intimate moment in front of Tommy. His gaze fell upon our intertwined hands, and my heart sank as I witnessed the mixture of pain and fury in his eyes. I yearned to bridge the divide, to express my love for him and erase his anguish, yet I remained immobilized by guilt. The disdainful look he cast upon me shattered my heart. The man I had spent 5 years loving now regarded me with revulsion, witnessing me entwined with another, an ex-lover no less. Paralyzed by indecision, I sat there, unable to utter a single word. The mere mention of Tommy wanting to speak with me sent a wave of dread through my chest. I braced myself for the inevitable, the confirmation that our relationship was over. Stepping into the men's room with him, uncertainty clouded my thoughts. I could only imagine what was running through his mind, and in that moment, I felt the weight of guilt like a heavy burden, akin to that of a spouse caught in infidelity. His directive for me to return home and await his arrival resonated with an unsettling intensity. His demeanor sent shivers down my spine, prompting a visceral fear within me. I knew I had to heed his words, to salvage our marriage and convey the reasons behind my actions. It was imperative to mend what was broken, and so I silently consented to his terms, however daunting they may have seemed. As he expressed his intention to confront Jason alone, a surge of apprehension swept over me. Jason's imposing stature and 8 years of Marine training posed a formidable threat to Tommy's safety. I longed to dissuade him from such a risky course of action, but I remained silent, understanding the futility of my protests. Though I attempted to express my remorse, Tommy's insistence for me to depart and his assurance of his imminent return left me with a sinking feeling of impending trouble. His instruction not to change my attire served as an ominous reminder that I would soon be called upon to account for my actions. How did I allow Jason to persuade me into this? He's the last person I wanted involved in my life. All I wanted was to reminisce and have some innocent fun, but now, seeing it through Tommy's perspective, it seems like I was on the verge of betraying him with Jason. Damn it, how can I rectify this mess? I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me as I traversed through the restaurant and made my way to my car. I couldn't bear to glance at Jason, knowing he must be wondering where I was headed. It took me several moments to gather myself enough to drive back home. That drive felt like an eternity. The anguish in Tommy's gaze brought fresh tears to my eyes. How could I have hurt him like this? I can't believe I allowed Jason to manipulate me, and now I need to find a way to make things right with Tommy. Damn it, I'm in deep trouble because of Jason and my own foolishness. Once I reached home, I brewed some coffee and sat there, pondering what transpired during their conversation. How long until Tommy arrives? Will he unleash his anger? Can I salvage our marriage? I have to. I can't imagine living without Tommy, and he needs to understand that he's the only one I truly love and want in my life. The narrative is told on Thomas's behalf, back at the restaurant and my conversation with Jason. I returned to the table and engaged in conversation with Jason. Well, it seems Melissa won't be returning, and I wanted to have a discussion with you. I'm sure you're aware that Melissa still harbors feelings for you and can be easily swayed, as evidenced by today and the past few weeks. However, it's important for you to realize that she is committed to me in marriage, and I'm not open to sharing. I continued, I'm not possessive or unreasonable, so this afternoon I'll give Melissa the choice to either remain in our marriage or leave me for you, but not both. She will make this decision independently, without any influence from you. May the best man prevail, and if she chooses you, then so be it. However, if she decides to stay in our marriage, she will have no further contact with you. If you don't hear from her today, I expect you to refrain from contacting her again. Do you understand what I'm conveying? Kaysen responded, listen, I'll contact her whenever I please. She's a capable adult who makes her own choices. You don't possess her. One thing's for sure, she will inevitably return to me. She can't resist. I'm sorry, but you'll have to come to terms with that, he said, sporting that familiar smirk once more. Oh, Jason, I was hoping you'd be a bit more reasonable. I mean, you're quite the catch, with your rugged good looks and muscular physique. Surely, there are countless single women out there who'd be eager to have your attention. Why can't men like you just steer clear of married women? You see, Jason, you might be this charismatic, attractive guy who still holds sway over Melissa's heart, but you're underestimating me. Listen, Jason, you don't really know much about my life or the circles I move in, and that, my friend, is where you're making your first mistake. I'm privy to a lot more than you might think. For instance, how are your parents, Gabriel and Natalie, doing? They seem to dote on their two dogs, Rocky and Roxy, don't they? It's been quite a while since you last saw your sister Christine in Austin. Her 3 daughters must be growing up fast, and I'm sure they'd love a visit from their Uncle Jason. Oh, and about your best friend Bob. Well, his girlfriend's expecting, and it looks like it's going to be a boy. She might not have broken the news to him yet, but I bet he'll be thrilled. Your persistence in reaching out to Melissa hasn't gone unnoticed either. You may fancy yourself as quite the tough guy, but the connections I have in my line of work, let's just say they're not ones to be trifled with, and they owe me more than a few favors. I smirked and retorted, as you so confidently put it, let's find out tonight who truly holds sway. Will she choose a macho charmer like yourself, or will she honor the commitment of our 5-year marriage? You see, Jason, I'm approaching this situation with civility. I'm affording her a choice. Her decision will be straightforward. She can opt to be with you, bidding farewell to me and our marriage. If that's her resolve, I'll accept it gracefully and wish you both well. However, I won't share my life with a woman who desires another man. It'll hurt, undoubtedly, but I'd rather let her go now and move forward. Conversely, if she elects to remain faithful, there will be adjustments following her recent behavior with you. The breach of trust necessitates restoration. Now, concerning you, if she opts to stay with me, you will cease all contact with her. No texts, emails, calls, or interactions through mutual friends. You'll vanish from her life entirely. Should you chance upon her in a restaurant, party, or club, you'll promptly depart. No clandestine maneuvers or attempts to reach out behind my back, as the repercussions will be severe. Your loved ones will bear the consequences of your recklessness. Do you grasp the gravity of what I've outlined? Are you comprehending the seriousness of my stance? Jason sat there, his face frozen in disbelief, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. How do you possess such intimate knowledge about my family and me? He finally managed to articulate, his voice tinged with a mix of astonishment and suspicion. His interlocutor maintained a calm demeanor, yet there was an undercurrent of menace in his words. Let's just say I've cultivated some unsavory connections over the years. My outward appearance may deceive you, but rest assured, there's more to me than meets the eye. The gravity of the situation began to sink in for Jason. So, you're seriously considering allowing her to leave me for another man? He questioned, incredulity coloring his tone. The other man's reply was unwavering. I always keep my promises. If she strays, she'll have made her choice. But if she remains faithful, she stays with me. There's no middle ground. With resolve hardening in his voice, Jason asserted, I hope you're true to your word about granting us peace, because she's made it clear she wants to be with me. She's confessed her desire, and I won't stand idly by." Though he attempted to project confidence, Jason couldn't shake the gnawing uncertainty that lingered beneath his words. This individual exuded arrogance, yet I couldn't help but entertain the possibility that he might be onto something. The truth would reveal itself soon. Rising from my seat to depart, I uttered, "I hope to never cross paths with you again or engage in unsavory deeds. But time will tell." As I made my exit, a figure lurking in the shadows rose, casting a menacing glare at Jason before departing a minute after me. It was evident that Jason now understood I had someone watching over me, challenging his perception of me as a docile, unsuspecting spouse. Driving home, my mind swirled with thoughts of whether the woman I cherished deeply would ever share my bed again. Would she opt for him and forsake me, or remain loyal to her marital vows? Melissa remained oblivious to the profound impact her decision would have on her life. Opting for Jason would leave her destitute, with only a meager alimony based on my modest income. The car, owned by the company, would be promptly reclaimed. Similarly, the house, registered under the company's name, wouldn't be within her reach either. She would find herself without a roof over her head and means of transportation. Our joint bank accounts held a paltry sum, which we would divide, leaving her with less than $5,000 in cash. Lacking employment or marketable skills, her earning potential would be limited to minimum wage. With Jason currently unemployed, her lifestyle would plummet from luxury to scraping by in a modest apartment, likely finding employment at a place like Walmart just to make ends meet. The unfolding of events promises to be intriguing indeed. The house greeted me with an eerie silence as I stepped inside. Melissa sat at the kitchen table, her demeanor tense, tears welling in her eyes as she sipped her coffee. Pouring myself a cup, I settled across from her. "Melissa, I'm aware of everything, including the exchanges you've had with Jason. Before you inquire further, understand that I have connections through my business dealings, and some owe me significant favors. They're not individuals you'd want to cross paths with. I know you're remorseful, but apologies hold little weight now. Your actions today have shattered my trust and breached the boundaries of our marriage. By prioritizing him over me, you've shown a blatant disregard for our relationship. You know me well enough to understand that I won't tolerate disrespect. Some define infidelity solely in physical terms, but in my world, even the mere contemplation of another man crosses that line. From your conversations with Jason, it's clear that you've crossed boundaries. The suggestive attire, the intimate gestures, all constitute a betrayal in my eyes. The absence of physical contact is the sole reason we're having this conversation. It's crucial for you to understand that I won't tolerate sharing you with anyone else, especially not a cheating spouse. I'm aware of the bond you once shared with Jason, and I recognize that there are lingering emotions. However, let me make it clear, I won't stand for you being with him or anyone else while you're still married to me. The reason I haven't taken drastic action yet is because my love for you runs deep, and I'm determined to salvage our relationship. But before we proceed, I need to ask a question, and I expect honesty because I might already know the truth. When you were with him, did you allow any intimate touching? Has anyone besides me ever crossed that line in our marriage? No, never. I swear it's only ever been you. But you were willing to entertain the idea today, weren't you? She lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. It wasn't my intention. I'm so sorry for everything. I feel like such a fool. Please forgive me, Tommy. Well, if he had touched you, our conversation would be over. It seems that apart from some hand-holding and texting, nothing has occurred to end our marriage, although I'm deeply disappointed in your behavior. Now explain to me, why did you choose that revealing dress? Were you planning to seduce him and betray me? Oh God, no. I would never do that. It's hard to explain, but I just wanted to feel attractive again to relive some past feelings. I know it was foolish and selfish, but he has a way of influencing me. I never intended to sleep with him. You have to believe me. Melissa, I want to believe you, but your actions today force me to confront a serious question, one that demands an honest answer. I've made it clear that I won't share you with another man, nor will I remain married to someone who harbors feelings for someone else. So here's the choice I'm giving you, and it's one you need to consider carefully, because once you decide, there's no turning back. I will not tolerate betrayal or disrespect again. I know you love me, and I understand the history you share with Jason. That's why I'm offering you this choice between Jason and our marriage. If you choose him, I'll let you go. I'll ensure a fair divorce settlement and guarantee both of your safety without seeking revenge. Alternatively, you can choose to stay in our marriage, remain faithful to me, and honor our vows. It's a straightforward decision with significant consequences. If you choose Jason, I'll expect you to leave the house with your belongings by the weekend, and I'll initiate divorce proceedings immediately. If you choose to stay married, you must cut all ties with Jason, today and forever. He will be dead to you. I reiterated the same conditions I laid out for Jason, emphasizing that they must never be in the same place at the same time, and that I would be aware if they were. Without hesitation, she agreed to my terms. Melissa, today you have a chance to redeem yourself, a rare opportunity to choose between a past flame and your devoted husband. I'm going to take a shower, and when I return, I expect your decision. Choose wisely. As I turned to leave the kitchen, she interjected hastily, "Of course, it's you, honey. I choose you. I love you, and I don't want anyone else." Melissa, your actions have betrayed me deeply. I heard your words, but I need you to sit with this for a while and truly reflect. If we're to stay together, trust must be rebuilt, and the pain and anger you've caused won't disappear overnight. Take your time and give me your answer after I return. This decision is too significant to rush, especially considering your actions today and your lingering feelings for Jason. I stated firmly before leaving her, tears streaming down her face, her head buried in her hands. I took my time in the shower and getting dressed. Upon my return to the kitchen, she rushed to me, enveloping me in a tight embrace, showering me with kisses. "Tommy, I'll never leave you. I'll never make that mistake again. I promise to make it up to you and be the perfect wife. You're my husband, and I want our future together with children. Please don't leave me. You're the only man I love," she pleaded, her grit firm and her kisses fervent. We held each other, kissed passionately, and then I led her to our bed, reclaiming my wife. In that moment, as we lay together in silence, the world faded away. Husband and wife reunited, we both knew that nothing would ever come between us again. The narrative is told on Jason's behalf. Jason the following day. "Damn, no call from her. Looks like she's sticking with that jerk. Can't believe it. The chemistry we had, her demeanor, everything led me to think she'd choose me. If only I could have sealed the deal that afternoon, she ditched Thomas without a second thought. Her husband really threw a wrench in my plans. Who is this guy anyway, and how does he know so much about me and my family? Well, I'm not giving up just yet. I still believe I can win her back. Sorry, Thomas, but you're about to lose your girl." The narrative is told on Thomas's behalf, 3 days after the confrontation. A few days later, as expected, Jason couldn't resist the urge to send Melissa a text, attempting to lure her away from me. Predictable. Fortunately, Melissa promptly showed me the message and refrained from responding. She knew I would see it and wasn't taking any chances. I commended her for her transparency and appreciated that she didn't engage with him, seeing it as a positive step in rebuilding our trust. The following day, I decided to reach out to Jason, asking about his parents' search for Rocky and Roxy. Jason's immediate reaction was to call his parents, discovering the anguish they felt upon realizing the pets were missing. It dawned on Jason that his actions, particularly contacting Melissa against my warning, had caused them pain. To emphasize the seriousness of the situation, I had Rocky and Roxy temporarily vanish under my watch, ensuring they were safe, but sending a clear message to Jason. Jason called me back immediately after speaking with his parents, his tone seething with anger. "What the hell? What have you done? They better not be harmed, or you'll pay for it." "Well, Jason, you're not the one calling the shots here. If anyone's facing consequences, it's you. I explicitly warned you not to contact Melissa, but you disregarded my warning. I also made it clear that if you did, you'd experience a level of pain you've never known. Consider this a mere taste. The dogs will likely return soon, but let me reiterate, this is your final warning. Do not attempt to reach out to Melissa again. Understood. Yeah, but they better come back unharmed. Because you chose to defy my instructions, I'll decide their fate as I see fit, and you'll have to deal with the repercussions. Now your threat doesn't exactly inspire generosity from me. In fact, I'm reconsidering whether they'll return at all. How does that sound, Jason? Maybe I should inform your parents why their precious pets are missing. What do you think? Okay, I'm sorry. Please bring them back, and I'll stay away, I promise. That's a start, but remember, next time it won't be the dogs that vanish. Do we have an understanding? Crystal clear. I swear I'll stay out of her life, and you won't hear from me again. Now when can I expect them back? They'll be back home soon, but Jason, remember, I'm miles away. I can't control everything, and the people I'm dealing with have their own agendas. I'll speak to them and see what I can do. Let's hope we never have to have this conversation again, because next time there won't be words exchanged and you'll be facing much bigger problems. At 3 in the morning the following night, the relieved parents were overcome with joy as their cherished dogs barked happily on their porch. Unaware of what transpired, they were simply grateful for their pet's return. Jason, upon hearing the news, breathed a sigh of relief. He even sent me a single-word text after their return. Thanks. Jason finally took the hint and distanced himself from Melissa, securing a job in a city several hours away. Despite his attempts to uncover more about Tommy, he could only access public information indicating Tommy's occupation as a financial advisor. Recognizing that there was likely more to Tommy than met the eye, Jason chose to move on and forge a new life without his former flame. However, knowing that as long as Jason remained alive, there was a risk of him resurfacing in Melissa's life, I took proactive measures. 2 weeks after the incident, I presented Melissa with a post-nuptial agreement drafted by my attorney. In it, she agreed to relinquish everything, including any rights to children born during our marriage, in the event of infidelity. While this couldn't prevent a recurrence of her past actions or a potential reunion with Jason, it provided ample incentive for her to consider the consequences. Combined with my increased attention to her activities and the assurance that I would be monitoring her closely, along with the terms of the agreement, we were prepared to weather any future storms that might arise. Epilogue. A year later, Melissa found herself pregnant with their first child, and the bond between the couple had strengthened remarkably. Recognizing the precipice she had once stood upon, Melissa committed herself to ensuring Tommy's happiness and building a family together. The specter of Jason faded into obscurity, never to be mentioned again, as if he had ceased to exist. That pivotal day had the potential to alter their lives irrevocably, but Tommy's unwavering love and resolute demeanor proved instrumental in salvaging their marriage. The second story. John. She believed she was being discreet, but little did she realize I was privy to every detail through a colleague of hers who was appalled by the situation. While she schemed, I quietly strategized. Fortunately, I had ample time to quell my anger and ready myself for the impending confrontation. The stage was set, and tonight, following dinner, it would all unfold. Janet. So, tonight's the night, Deborah inquired. Yes, I'm finally going through with it. I'll wait until after dinner, bring him a beer, and then break the news, I affirmed. Just remember to stand your ground. He won't take it well, but you have to be firm, Deborah reminded me. I know. Just as we discussed, he doesn't have a choice. This is what's best for me, and if he truly cares, he'll understand, I reassured her. Exactly. Brace yourself for the yelling and resistance. He'll put up a fight, but eventually he'll come around. Stay composed but assertive. Let him vent, and he'll realize you mean business, Deborah advised. Right. And as far as he knows, it's only temporary. Once he adjusts, he'll see the benefits. Then everything will fall into place. Are you sure about this? John can be stubborn. I expressed my concern. Janet, John adores you. Yes, he'll be furious, but deep down, he'll do anything to keep you happy. Even if it means accepting this, Deborah assured me. Okay, I'll trust your judgment, I conceded. Believe me, it took me 2 failed marriages to figure this out, but with my current husband, he's completely compliant. Give it time, and John will fall in line too. You'll have the security of your marriage and the freedom to explore, Deborah revealed confidently. After wrapping up the day, I returned home to prepare John's favorite dinner. When he arrived, his customary "I love you" and kiss on the cheek greeted me. Despite my attempts to appear composed, nerves still lingered. This marked a significant shift in our marriage. Yet I held on to the belief that it would all be worth it. Deborah had been sharing her experiences with a female-led marriage, FLM, for some time now. Witnessing how content her husband appeared within their dynamic convinced me that John could find happiness in it too. Dinner conversation flowed smoothly as we exchanged stories about our day and discussed current events. It seemed like any other evening meal for us. Following dinner, I insisted John relax with a beer while I took care of cleanup. He hesitated, eager to assist, but I assured him I had it under control. With leftovers stored and dishes in the dishwasher, the moment arrived. Pouring myself a glass of wine, I mentally steeled myself for the impending conversation and entered the living room prepared to confront the situation head-on. "John, darling, we need to have a conversation," I began, steeling myself for what was to come. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" He responded, his tone gentle. "Okay, John, I know this might be hard to hear, but it's something I feel I must do. Please understand, it's only temporary," I explained, hoping he would grasp the gravity of the situation. "Whatever it is, if it's important to you, I'm on board. Your happiness means everything to me," he replied, surprisingly calm. "Thank you for being so understanding. So, we've been talking about starting a family, and I'm almost ready for that. But before we do, there are a few things I need to address," I continued cautiously. "That's fantastic news, baby. What do you need to take care of?" he inquired eagerly. Here it was, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for his reaction. "Well, John, I need to explore some things before we settle down completely. It's just a temporary phase, and then I'll be fully committed to being the best wife and mother I can be," I confessed, hoping he wouldn't explode. "That sounds reasonable, my love. But what exactly do you mean by exploring?" he asked, surprising me with his composure. I couldn't believe how well he was taking it. This wasn't the explosive reaction I had anticipated. "I plan to date other men for a while, but please understand, it's purely physical. You're the one I love. After a few months, I'll come back to you, and we can focus on building our family," I explained, relieved that he wasn't erupting into anger. "Well, Janet, it seems you've already made your decision without needing my permission. While I want to make it clear that I'm not in favor of this, I understand you're your own person. I won't stand in your way if this is what you feel you must do," John calmly expressed, surprising me with his composed response. Deborah's insights were proving accurate. Perhaps John was more accepting than I anticipated. "So, Janet, how do you envision this working? Will one of us be moving out, or do you expect me to leave? Are you planning to bring your dates here, or will you be going to their places or hotels?" John continued, his tone remaining conversational. "Well, I assumed we both still live here. After all, we're still married, and as I mentioned earlier, our intimate life won't change. I might visit their places occasionally, but sometimes I'll bring them here too. On those nights, you'd stay in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel when we have space here," I explained, trying to navigate the logistics calmly. "Okay, I want to reiterate that I'm not on board with this. However, I have to insist that I won't be intimate with you while this is going on. It's a matter of my own health. Since I won't know who these men are or what their backgrounds entail, I won't risk exposing myself to any potential STDs they might carry. Moreover, once you're done with this phase and decide to come back to me, we'll need to wait until you've been tested and cleared of any risks. You go and enjoy yourself, and don't worry about me," John stated firmly, expressing his boundaries. "Well, John, I can't say I'm not disappointed. I love you, and our intimacy means a lot to me, but I understand your concerns. I'll have to live with that," I responded, acknowledging his stance while feeling a pang of sadness. "All right, honey. So when do you plan on starting these flings?" John inquired, shifting back to practicalities. Deborah and I arranged to meet a couple of guys from work at a club tomorrow night. I'm not sure what will happen, but I might bring one of them back here for the night. Since we won't be intimate anyway, maybe you should move into the spare room for the next couple of months, I suggested, trying to figure out the logistics. Okay, Janet, don't worry about it. I'll make sure I'm settled in the spare room by the time you get back tomorrow night, John replied, returning to his newspaper without further ado. I was astounded by how maturely John handled the situation. Despite his reservations and refusal to engage in intimacy, he remained remarkably accepting. Deborah's prediction seemed spot on. In just a couple of months, John would likely be fully on board with my plan. And as for the no-sex rule, I knew it was only temporary. Given a week or two, he'd be back in our bed, none the wiser about my secret key to his compliance. The next day, I reached out to Deborah with excitement. Hey, Deborah, it's Janet. Hey there, so spill the beans. How did it go with John last night? Deborah inquired eagerly. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. John surprised me with his maturity. I was prepared for fireworks, but he remained calm and accepting throughout the whole conversation. I gushed. That's fantastic. I told you he'd come around. Do you think you'll be able to persuade him to watch tonight? Deborah asked optimistically. I doubt it. Actually, I'm not even going to suggest it yet. He made it clear he wouldn't sleep with me while I'm involved with someone else, I explained, recognizing John's boundary. I bet it won't last long. Give him a week or two of using his hand while knowing there's a beautiful woman next to him, and he'll come crawling back. He might even be desperate enough for sloppy seconds right after your lover, Deborah suggested mischievously. That does sound enticing. Since he refused to touch me, I went ahead and had him move into the spare room. He's packing up right now. He promised he'd be completely out of the mistress bedroom by the time I get home tonight, I shared, amused by the situation. I love that you renamed it the mistress bedroom. I might have to do the same, Deborah chuckled. Oh, absolutely. Well, I'd better start getting ready. See you at the club, I said, preparing to end the call. All right, bye for now, Deborah replied, and we hung up, both eager for the evening's adventures. Later that evening, John had made considerable progress in boxing up my belongings from the bedroom. I questioned the necessity of boxing everything when he could have easily carried armfuls of items down the hall. However, he explained that it would be more efficient, allowing him to sort through belongings and discard unnecessary items directly into the boxes. While I understood the logic, I was preoccupied with getting ready and didn't pay much attention. He complimented me on how attractive I looked in my thong, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch heels. There was no comment from him when I slipped into the little red cocktail dress I had bought for our 5th anniversary last year. It had only been worn once before, but it still made me feel stunning. All right, John, I'm heading out. I'll probably be back around 1 in the morning, so there's no need for you to wait up. Besides, I might not be alone, I informed him as I grabbed my clutch, ready to leave. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll have everything moved out by then, he assured me, closing the last box. As I left the house, a nagging feeling tugged at my mind, though I couldn't quite identify its source. I pushed it aside, choosing to focus on the excitement of the night ahead. I joined Deborah, Kurt, and Louis at the club. Kurt and Louis, both account managers at work, were undeniably handsome, and according to Deborah and a few other colleagues, generously endowed. So, John really moved all the way into the spare bedroom. Deborah inquired as our first round of drinks arrived. Yeah, he finished boxing everything up just before I left. He'd assured me he'd be completely moved out by the time I returned, I confirmed. Is that what he said? Louis chimed in with a chuckle. Yeah, that's his exact quote. I'll be moved out by then, I replied, and we all shared a laugh. I was hoping we could make the little cuck move over and do it on the bed right beside him, Kurt joked, eliciting more laughter. Maybe once I've worked on him for a week or two, I giggled. But first, why haven't either of you studs asked me to dance yet? We spent the next few hours dancing and drinking. I danced with both guys multiple times, enjoying their company and the feeling of their hands on my waist. During the slower songs, we cuddled close, and their hands often found their way to my backside. Eventually, Deborah and I slipped away to the powder room to plan the end of the night. After a few rounds of rock, paper, scissors, I ended up taking Lewis home, while Deborah left with Kurt. The house was shrouded in darkness as I guided Lewis through the front door. John must have retired to bed already. That was fine. We didn't need an audience just yet. Leading Lewis down the hallway and into my room, I noted with satisfaction that John's belongings had been cleared out. Perhaps I should reward him with a little something tomorrow, like a hand job. It was certainly worth considering, but for now, my focus lay elsewhere. We wasted no time shedding our clothes, though Lewis insisted I leave on the garter belt and stockings. My thong had vanished hours ago, a playful memento claimed by either Kurt or Louise, not that it mattered. With John's financial support, replacing it was hardly a concern. Tonight promised to be scorching hot. After Lewis left to tend to his family, I slipped into my robe and headed for the kitchen to brew some coffee. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment that John hadn't already taken care of it. It was past 9 o'clock after all. Typically, he'd have been up for an hour by now. I made a mental note to address this with him later. It seemed reasonable to expect him to have coffee and breakfast ready for me after a late night. So much for the hand job I had considered as a thank you for moving to the spare bedroom while I was out. I settled for a bagel for breakfast before heading to the shower to freshen up. The hot water worked wonders, soothing my tired muscles. With no pressing obligations for the day, I opted for a comfy ensemble, an old pair of shorts, and a t-shirt. Since I'd only be spending time around John, I grabbed a functional bra and a pair of regular panties. Just as I finished tying my hair into a ponytail, my phone began to ring. "Hey, Deborah," I greeted as I noticed her name on the caller ID. "Hi there. So spill the beans. How was Louis last night?" she inquired eagerly. "He was amazing. Everything I hoped for. Although there's a slight hiccup, he turned down my offer," I confessed. "Regarding John, how did he react this morning?" Deborah asked, shifting the conversation. "I'm not sure. I'm actually irritated because he seems to be sleeping in. I was counting on him to have breakfast ready with coffee made by now," I grumbled. "Make sure you express your disappointment and set your expectations clear. Keep asserting yourself, but also remember to reward him for his efforts. That'll give him motivation to step up," Deborah advised wisely. "I'm starting to get annoyed that he's still not up. Hold on a sec while I give him a wake-up call," I said determinedly. I strode down the hall to the spare bedroom and pounded on the door, calling out John's name. No response. Trying again, I received silence once more. Finally, I turned the knob and flung the door open. "Oh, damn," I exclaimed in shock. "What's going on?" Deborah's voice echoed through the phone. "John's not here. His clothes are gone from the closet," I replied, panic rising. "Hold on," I continued as I sprinted through the house. "His truck's missing too, along with all his tools." The nagging feeling in the back of my mind began to solidify. "Oh no," I gasped. "What? What's happening?" Deborah pressed anxiously. "John moved out. Now it all makes sense. I misunderstood what he meant. He didn't say he was moving his stuff to the spare room. He said he was moving it out of my room. Then he mentioned being moved out before I got back. I thought he meant out of my room, but he meant out of the entire house. I need to call him and find out where he went," I exclaimed in realization. No. That's not the way to handle this. Contacting him now shows weakness. You need to stay strong. Let him come to you," Deborah advised firmly. "Trust me, he's just throwing a tantrum. In a few days, he'll come crawling back. This is actually a good thing. Now you have the upper hand to punish him and make him beg to come back. It'll speed up the process. I wouldn't be surprised if you let Louis or Kurt knock you up and make Sean raise the kid." "Are you sure about this?" I asked, still feeling a bit uncertain. "Absolutely. Just look at what my husband does for me," Deborah replied confidently. "Well, I have to admit, you've been right about things so far," I conceded. "Of course I have. "Oh, and Kurt wants to meet you in the storage room at work for an hour on Monday," Deborah added casually. "Can we really get away with that?" I questioned, feeling a hint of nervousness. "Of course, half the girls are doing it. I handle all the scheduling. I'll email you the details. Just mark it as a meeting somewhere else. Don't worry, the boss never goes in there, and anyone who needs something from there knows to ask me first," Deborah assured me. We chatted a bit more before ending the call. Despite my apprehension about John moving out, I couldn't deny my love for him and my desire to spend my life with him. But Deborah had painted such an enticing picture of the FLNM, with its freedom to explore other men while keeping John as a loyal, submissive husband. Perhaps in a few years, I could negotiate with John to stop seeing other men if I felt ready to give them up. He wouldn't need to know that it would be on my terms. And maybe I could use pegging as a condition for allowing him to come back. I'd need to think about that one. But for now, I needed to recover from last night, gearing up for what would undoubtedly be a long, hard day at work tomorrow. Chuckling at the unintended innuendo, I prepared a simple dinner, enjoyed a glass of wine, and headed to bed. Friday morning. I hadn't heard from John all week, which left me feeling increasingly uneasy. Deborah, however, remained optimistic, assuring me that his silence wasn't entirely unexpected. According to her, he would likely reach out soon. Besides, she pointed out, the longer he stayed away, the more leverage I could gain for his eventual return. Throughout the week, I had been meeting with Kurt, Louis, and a few other attractive men in the storage room, as arranged. Today's agenda even included a scheduled double teaming with Kurt and Louis in the afternoon. It was mid-morning on Friday, and during our break, Kurt, Louis, Deborah, and I were gathered around the coffee maker, engaged in light conversation, when we noticed an elegantly dressed woman approaching us. Janet Thompson, Deborah Allen, Louis White, and Kurt Anderson. She inquired in a sweet southern drawl. Confirming our identities, we each received an envelope from her, and she snapped a quick picture with a small digital camera. "Y'all have been served," she announced before turning and heading toward our boss's office. "What's this about?" I called out to her retreating figure. "Honey, I'm just paid to deliver 'em, not read 'em," she replied over her shoulder before entering our boss's office without knocking. She emerged less than a minute later. "Y'all have a nice day now," she chirped as she exited the building. With a sense of foreboding, we all opened our envelopes simultaneously, revealing petitions for dissolution of marriage inside. Panic set in as I read the reason listed. Adultery. Frozen in shock, I glanced up to see Louis and Kurt's expressions mirror my own. "Oh, damn," they whispered simultaneously as their cell phones began to ring. The situation escalated rapidly as Louis and Kurt received calls from their wives, who had been provided with evidence of their infidelities. Moments later, their possessions were being unceremoniously thrown out of the front door, leaving them in need of alternative accommodation. The impending service of divorce papers loomed over them. "What the hell?" erupted from the interior of our boss's office, prompting him to storm out and confront us. With fury evident in his voice, he shouted our names for all to hear. "Thompson, Allen, White, Anderson. Get your asses in here. Now." A sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach as we obediently filed past him into his office, the door slamming shut behind us. Bad didn't even begin to cover it. Would any of you idiots care to explain this to me? Our boss demanded, brandishing the manila envelope in front of us. None of us dared to speak up. Fine, I'll enlighten you morons. It seems the company is being sued for failing to uphold the moral code outlined in our employee handbook. Any guesses as to why? Once again, silence met his question. Allow me to clarify. We're being sued because Mrs. Thompson can't keep her legs closed, Mr. Anderson and Mr. White can't seem to control their urges, and Mrs. Allen has transformed our warehouse into a brothel. Now, can any of you assure me that these claims are baseless? Can any of you confirm that, at the very least, these incidents didn't occur on company time or property? Anyone? No. Unbelievable. What the hell were you idiots thinking? And the cherry on top? I can't even fire you until this mess is sorted out thanks to that damn court order. Now get out of my office until I figure out what to do with you." With heads lowered, we shuffled out of his office and returned to our own workspaces. It was hard to focus after that bombshell. At least I still had a job. I decided to review the divorce petition to gauge the extent of the damage. It was worse than I imagined. He had evidence in the form of pictures, videos, audio recordings, and even notarized letters. An hour later, there was a company-wide email sent from the boss. To all employees. Management has become aware of multiple instances where employees have planned, scheduled, and engaged in activities that directly violate the moral code of conduct outlined in the employee handbook. What's more concerning is that these actions took place during working hours and on company premises. Given the possibility that this issue may be more widespread than initially documented, we are compelled to take immediate and drastic action. Unfortunately, identifying the individuals involved has proven challenging. Therefore, the following measures will be implemented. 1. All employees are required to thoroughly review the moral code outlined in the employee manual. Over the weekend, our aid department will develop an online class to ensure understanding and compliance. Each employee must successfully complete this course by next Friday. 2. Security will conduct random checks of all secluded areas throughout the day multiple times. This will continue until permanent security cameras are installed to monitor these locations. 3. Effective immediately, access to the storeroom will be restricted. The key will be held by the head of security, and any necessary supplies must be obtained with a security escort. 4. It will closely monitor computer usage to prevent personal activities on company assets. Prohibited activities include scheduling non-work-related meetings, using personal email accounts, accessing non-work-related websites, and engaging in non-work-related text messaging. 5. Socializing with coworkers must be confined to the break room during scheduled breaks and lunch times. Security officers will patrol the building to enforce this policy. Per company policy, the names of those responsible for these actions will not be disclosed. We trust that this information will not be necessary. Thank you for your attention to these matters, management. 2 minutes later, my inbox was flooded with hate mail from disgruntled colleagues. After work, I joined the other 3 at the bar across the street. We managed to snag a small table in the corner amidst several other coworkers enjoying Friday happy hour. Their disdainful glares towards us were far from welcoming. Well, at least we still have jobs, for the time being anyway. It was almost considerate of him, don't you think? But why do you suppose John included that provision in the court order? I pondered aloud. Lewis let out a scoff. Oh, come on. It's pretty obvious. He wasn't trying to spare your feelings. He did it to inflict more pain. What do you mean? I inquired, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. Alimony. It might not even matter because he's citing adultery, but this is just insurance against that, Lewis explained. If you're employed and earning, a judge won't likely order alimony. But if you were to lose your job and struggle to find another, a sympathetic judge might grant financial support until you're back on your feet. So you hold on to your job until the divorce is finalized. Once that's done and a settlement with our company is reached, we could all find ourselves out of work, sans alimony. This wasn't about helping you, it was about covering his own back. I'll just resign on Monday, then, I declared, attempting to take control of the situation. Good grief, you're truly a natural blonde, aren't you? Kurt remarked. What do you mean? I asked, feeling a bit defensive. Resigning is essentially waving a red flag to the judge, Lewis explained grimly. If you quit your job after being served divorce papers, it'll look like you're trying to manipulate the situation to get alimony. Trust me, the judge won't buy any other explanation. You'll be seen as someone trying to game the system. Your best bet is to hang on to that job for dear life and stash away every penny you can. It's going to be even worse for Luis and me, Kurt chimed in. Our wives will likely get awarded alimony and child support, given our kids in the picture. Imagine the mess when we suddenly lose our jobs and can't find anything close to the same income level. Alimony and child support payments are set based on our current incomes at the time of divorce. Damn, I muttered, feeling the weight of the situation sinking in. This whole female-led marriage thing wasn't sounding so great anymore. I realized I needed to have a serious talk with John and sort things out. As much as I wanted to support my friends, losing my husband wasn't an option. What was I even thinking? Forget my friends. If throwing them under the bus could save my marriage, then let the tossing begin. I swiftly pulled out my phone, ready to make the call. "We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number." Damn. "Deborah, give me your phone." "Why?" "Because John blocked my number. I need to talk to him and get this shitstorm fixed." She handed me her phone as my 3 companions looked at me dubiously. "We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number." "Damn, he blocked yours too." "Try Kurt or Lewis." "Not a real good idea. I'm trying to fix things here." "What do you think he will do if he finds out that the first call I make to him is with the phone of one of my lovers?" "Yes, I know. You already think that I'm stupid." At this point, I can't even refute that. Given what happened at the office today, I can only say that I had a massive wake-up call. I was in full-blown panic mode. How do you track down a husband who's deliberately avoiding you on a Friday evening? Staking out his workplace was futile since it's closed and he doesn't work weekends. With our cell phones blocked and likely our home and work phones too, direct communication was out of the question. Face-to-face seemed like the only option. I needed to find him and confront him head-on. Forget about my pride, forget about these other women's marriages. Right now, all I wanted was to reconcile with my husband. As I scrolled through my contacts, I hoped that one of his friends might have a clue. Unfortunately, none of our mutual friends seemed to know anything. Well, that's not entirely accurate. The ones who still talked to me had no idea, but the ones who now despised me had all the information. However, they weren't about to help me out. Instead, they laughed at my requests for assistance, refusing to even pass on a message. It was humiliating. As I hung up the phone after my unsuccessful attempt to reach John, I sank deeper into my seat, nursing my 4th drink. Just then, Lewis piped up with what he probably thought was a stroke of genius. "Well," he began, "since our lives have already gone to waste anyway, why don't we go to Janet's and spend the whole night as a foursome?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he really think that was a good idea? Maybe to him, but after the reality check I'd just received, I couldn't entertain the thought. Despite feeling like everything was falling apart, I still clung to the tiny sliver of hope that John and I could salvage our relationship. That hope would vanish in an instant if I gave in to Lewis's suggestion. Politely declining, I suggested that Deborah take them home with her. I had a husband to try to win back, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that chance. Over the weekend, I exhausted every avenue to locate John. From scouring motel parking lots for his truck to driving by his friends' homes at various times, I left no stone unturned. I even attempted to tail his best friend, hoping he'd lead me to John. But despite my efforts, I came up empty-handed. Monday morning, I stationed myself across the street from his workplace, eagerly awaiting his arrival. However, as the morning progressed, John never showed up. Disheartened, I lingered for another hour, but there was still no sign of him. By then, I was already late for my own job, but I was beyond caring. The impending settlement meant my employment status was precarious anyway. Bracing myself, I entered the office and approached the receptionist, hoping for some information on John's whereabouts. Unfortunately, I learned he was on leave for the next 2 weeks. Ignoring the boss's glare, I trudged into the office, already 2 hours late. At this point, I had exhausted all conventional means of reaching John. Phones were either blocked or risky to use, his friends were uncooperative, and I couldn't even get a message to him at his workplace. Showing up unannounced at his doorstep wasn't feasible, and I had no address for postal correspondence. As I settled into my desk, a glimmer of hope emerged: email. John was diligent about checking his emails. With nothing to lose, I decided to give it a shot, praying that he hadn't blocked my emails. It was worth a try. John, I won't attempt to fabricate excuses, as it would only waste our time. I must admit, I seem to have caught a sudden case of foolishness. It's not fair to blame Deborah. I made my own misguided decision. Yet, the allure of her talk about a female-led marriage seemed irresistible at the time. Deep down, I knew better than to think you'd entertain such an idea. It took a metaphorical blow to the head for me to snap out of it. I'm awake now, profoundly embarrassed and genuinely sorry for my actions. I understand if you can't forgive me just yet. John, despite my recent behavior, my love for you remains unwavering. Please don't blame yourself. This was entirely my doing, born out of sheer idiocy and selfishness. John, my love, though I know I don't deserve it, I beg for your forgiveness. I'm pleading for another chance, willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I see now how foolish I was to pursue an FLNM, and I am eager to embrace an MLF with you. Yes, John, I'm offering myself wholly to you, ready to fulfill your every command. I understand the gravity of the word anything. Please, John, I'm laying everything on the line for you. Since it was a condition for my return to you, I've already undergone STD testing, and the results should be available in a couple of days. Just let me know where to send them, and I'll make sure you receive them promptly. John, I recognize you as the finest man I've ever known. I trust that you would never intentionally harm me, even though I may have warranted it. I acknowledge all of this. I'm not asking you to forget or to trust me again. All I seek is the opportunity to be yours in whatever capacity you desire. I desire nothing more than to reunite with you, even if it means accepting the end of our marriage. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I understand that decision isn't mine to make. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I'm prepared for any consequences you deem fitting. Regarding Deborah, Kurt, Lewis, and the lawsuit against my company, Deborah manipulated me into participating in this scheme, and Lewis and Kurt exploited the situation. As you're aware, I'll be terminated once the lawsuit concludes. We're all culpable. Feel free to handle them as you see fit. I'm even willing to assist if you desire. From now on, I willingly submit myself to you. Your devoted servant, Janet. Epilogue. Fortunately, John hadn't taken the step of blocking my email yet. Even more astonishing was that he actually read it. Of course, he didn't fully trust my words. After all, I had already violated the most significant vow I had ever made, the one about forsaking all others. Given my breach of that promise, it was understandable for him to doubt my commitment to any other pledges. All I could do was demonstrate my sincerity to him through consistent actions over time. It has been 2 years since I sent that email. Lewis and Kurt found themselves deeply embroiled in the turmoil of their divorces. Following the settlement of the lawsuit against the company, all 4 of us were promptly dismissed from our jobs. Lewis and Kurt eventually secured new employment, albeit with significantly lower wages. They were forced to relocate to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in one of the city's most undesirable neighborhoods. Struggling to make ends meet, they found their social lives dwindling to near non-existence. Their ex-wives took advantage of the situation to alienate their children from them. I've heard that both women have since found themselves in happier relationships. Regarding myself, John agreed to my proposition of becoming his submissive. Yes, John wanted to put my commitment to the test, to see if I would uphold my promise. If I wanted to reconcile with him, I had no alternative. It was a challenging 6 months, but eventually he eased up a bit. Now he only brings other women home once every couple of months. After losing my job, I ceased working altogether. John received a promotion and now earns enough for us to live comfortably without my income. I predominantly stay at home, caring for our 2-year-old twins and managing the household. Most of the time, I'm unclothed, although John recently mentioned that I'll need to start wearing clothes at home soon, as the kids are getting older and it might become awkward otherwise. However, for the time being, I only dress when leaving the house or when we have guests over. I still answer the door nude for deliveries. As for Deborah, well, she's still married. Sure, she was also terminated from her job, but nobody really anticipated any significant repercussions for her. She had her husband completely under her control. She'll simply find another job, and life will continue as usual for her. Oh well, life isn't always equitable. Yeah, right. It turns out Marcus wasn't the submissive pushover everyone perceived him to be. Once he gathered all the evidence, he became furious. I thought I had a difficult 6 months, but compared to hers, mine was a walk in the park. Then, when he felt she'd been sufficiently punished, he served her with divorce papers. While he was subjecting Deborah to torment, he was covertly liquidating all their assets and safeguarding them. He granted her the house, after refinancing and claiming all the equity, then vanished. She lost the house, and all the money disappeared. Although she managed to secure another job, it paid only half of what she had been earning before. Additionally, she developed a tarnished reputation. She still goes on dates, but the men are only interested in one thing: getting into her pants. She's currently not dating, though, as she still has another month of antibiotics to complete. You may be wondering why I tolerate this situation, or perhaps you find it amusing that I'm facing the consequences I deserve. If you're upset because John didn't abandon me, I thank God every day for his mercy, though I know I deserved otherwise. I endure because I simply can't fathom life without the love of my life by my side. Yes, John inflicts punishment and degradation upon me, but he still loves me. I retain the freedom to leave whenever I choose, and John has assured me of fair treatment in the event of a divorce. However, I declined his offer. He's an exceptional father, partner, and spouse, and I desire nothing more. I became so fixated on the notion of a female-led marriage that I lost sight of what truly matters. Instead of finding fulfillment in an equal partnership, I've embraced a submissive role to my husband. It wasn't the path I envisioned, but I find contentment in it. The third story. The beginning of my family's story. As I entered the house, my wife's excitement was palpable. She hurried over to greet me with a warm kiss before darting back into the kitchen to put the finishing touches on dinner. "I made your favorite tonight, and guess what? I have some exciting news to share," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "That's fantastic, dear," I responded with a smile. "Coincidentally, I have some big news too. Perhaps we should have a double celebration." It was Friday evening, marking the end of the work week. While she wrapped things up in the kitchen, I headed to the bedroom to freshen up and change into more relaxed attire. With tomorrow off, I eagerly anticipated spending a leisurely night with my wife, filled with intimacy and conversation about our respective news. The thrill of sharing and celebrating together filled me with anticipation. I'm Jack Martinez, and my wife is Caroline. We've been happily married for 7 years, both of us now 30 years old. Standing at 6'2" and weighing around 210 pounds, give or take a pound depending on the day, I like to think I'm in pretty good shape. While I don't consider myself a heartthrob, I've been told more than a few times that I'm above average in looks. Caroline, on the other hand, stands at 5'6" and maintains a lovely weight of 110 pounds. She's also quite fit, just like me. We're both regulars at the gym. Caroline has long blonde hair, captivating brown eyes, and a stunning figure that never fails to turn heads. Lately, I had a strong inkling about what her news might be. We'd recently embarked on the journey of starting a family. Caroline had stopped taking birth control pills a few months back, and ever since, our time in bed had seen a significant increase. Now, don't get me wrong, we weren't exactly celibate before this change. In our first year of marriage, we were at it almost every night, gradually slowing down to an average of 3 times a week thereafter. However, since Caroline went off the pill, we'd ramped up our intimacy even more. The only times we put it on hold were when I had to be out of town for work. I didn't have to travel much for work. Typically, I was at my office by 7:00 a.m. and left around 5:00 p.m. As a mechanical engineer, my schedule remained fairly consistent, with only occasional deviations for conferences or seminars, happening about once every quarter. Recently promoted to engineering manager, I now oversaw a team consisting of 5 junior engineers, 3 engineering technicians, and a couple of secretaries, along with my own personal secretary. Caroline, my wife, worked as a paralegal for a small law firm in town. Among 5 lawyers, she was one of 3 paralegals, and her schedule mirrored mine in regularity. The only changes occurred when she had to stay late due to occasional issues with significant cases. After showering and changing, I entered the kitchen just as Caroline was setting dinner on the table. It was evident she had gone the extra mile for this evening. I suspected she had taken the afternoon off to prepare. On the menu was chicken scallopini, accompanied by a delightful Caesar salad and garlic bread. To top it off, she had prepared tiramisu for dessert and even uncorked a couple of bottles of excellent Merlot to complement the meal and savor afterward. Caroline's anticipation was palpable, evident not only in the exquisite meal but also in her attire. She was adorned in one of her most attractive dresses, suggesting she anticipated a night filled with passion and excitement. Her news promised to be something truly remarkable, and I couldn't wait for our conversation later that evening. After we finished dinner and dessert, I pitched in to help Caroline clear the table and tidy up the kitchen. We topped off our wine glasses and made our way to the living room, eager to share our respective news. Seated on the couch, we engaged in the customary back and forth about who would go first. Caroline's bubbling excitement made it easy for her to volunteer. She could hardly contain herself, her happiness practically radiating from her. I half expected her news to burst out spontaneously. "We did it, sweetheart. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby," she exclaimed, her joy palpable. "That's incredible," I exclaimed, overwhelmed with happiness. Caroline flung herself into my arms, showering me with passionate kisses. As we embraced, sharing in the overwhelming joy, I couldn't wait to share my own news with her. With a beaming smile and an infectious enthusiasm, I revealed my own thrilling announcement. "I got my secretary, Eva, pregnant as well," I revealed to my wife, my excitement evident in my tone. "Since she's single and doesn't want to raise a child alone, we've decided that she'll give her baby to us to raise. It'll be like they're twins. Since you and Eva will be delivering at about the same time, they'll actually be twins in every way except for blood. And since I'm the father, custody won't be an issue, especially since she's willing to sign off on me taking custody. All she wants is to be involved as more of a favored aunt to the child. We'll probably need to explain it to him or her when they're old enough to understand and accept it, but that shouldn't be a problem." I eagerly awaited my wife's response, but instead of the happiness I anticipated, I was met with a severe lack of joy. In fact, she appeared angry. It puzzled me. Here I was, sharing news of our family expanding, and yet her reaction was one of extreme hostility. I was genuinely taken aback. Her distressed expression gave me pause, but I felt she needed to know the full extent of the situation, hoping it might turn her upset back into happiness. Her initial ultrasound also indicated that she was having twins. I continued, attempting to maintain my excitement despite my wife's unsettling reaction. Although it's still too early to determine the sex, there's a good likelihood that at least one of them is a girl. Maybe it'll be one of each. Just imagine, you can have the little girl you've always wanted, and I can have the little boy as well. Whichever one you're having will be a bonus. We'll instantly have the big family you've always wanted. However, instead of the joyous response I anticipated, my wife's anger only seemed to intensify. I couldn't comprehend what was happening, and then, like a sudden explosion, her pent-up fury erupted. "You sneaky cheater. You cheated on me with that prostitute from your office," she accused, her voice trembling with rage. "What the hell were you thinking when you did that? Do you really think I'm gonna raise that bitch's kids? Are you out of your mind?" The situation rapidly spiraled downhill from there. For the next half hour, she unleashed a torrent of insults, hurling every imaginable insult in the English language at me. It seemed like she even invented a few new ones on the spot. This was far from the scenario I had envisioned. It became increasingly clear that my hopes for a night of passionate lovemaking were rapidly dwindling. Nonetheless, I remained undeterred. "Sweetie, how about we retreat to the bedroom and celebrate our shared good news?" I suggested, attempting to salvage the evening. I'm confident that after a night of passionate lovemaking, we'll gain a clearer understanding of what our lives will be like with 3 new additions to our loving family. To my surprise, not only did she vehemently reject my proposal, but she had the audacity to attempt to banish me from sleeping in my own bed. If she didn't want to share a bed with me, she could find another place to sleep. Eventually, consumed by rage, she stormed out to the spare bedroom, clutching her pillows. I was genuinely bewildered by her behavior. Nevertheless, feeling justified in my actions, I rolled over and slept peacefully for the remainder of the night. The following morning, my attempts to coax my wife into our bed were met with continued resistance. She remained irrationally angry with me, and her refusal to communicate only added to my confusion. Realizing that her emotions were beyond my influence, I opted to seize the opportunity presented by the pleasant weather and headed out for a round of golf. I met some cool people there. One guy, his wife, and her sister. With the wife's sister, we bonded really well, and in less than 3 hours, we got to know each other from a new side, if you know what I mean. Upon arriving home, I was taken aback to find my garage door opener malfunctioning. Puzzled by the unexpected glitch, I investigated further, checking the batteries to no avail. Deciding to approach the front door instead, I was met with an even more perplexing sight: several suitcases stacked neatly on the porch. Despite my confusion, I shrugged off the oddity and attempted to unlock the front door, only to discover it securely fastened. While this wasn't entirely surprising, given that I typically left through the garage in the mornings, what struck me as strange was the fact that my key failed to fit the locks. Upon closer inspection, I realized they appeared to be brand new, a detail that Caroline had never mentioned. Determined to gain access to the house, I set aside my bewilderment and focused on finding a solution. Feeling hot and weary from the day's activities, I retrieved my Sawzall from the truck and swiftly took action, cutting through the door around the doorknob and deadbolt. With the obstruction removed, I made a mental note to replace the door and proceeded inside, eager for a much-needed shower and change of clothes. Upon entering the house, I was met with yet another tirade from Caroline. She mentioned something about me moving out and my clothes being packed in the suitcases outside. Feeling puzzled, I retrieved the suitcases and brought them back indoors, sorting through my belongings and returning them to their rightful places in the bedroom. As Caroline's rant escalated, she began accusing me of infidelity. I couldn't fathom where she was getting these ideas. Sure, there was that one time with Janice, but it was just a brief fling. Well, okay, maybe more than brief, but it was a one-off occurrence. I hardly knew Janice. Attempting to defuse the situation, I suggested we take a shower together, but Caroline vehemently refused. It dawned on me that she might be grappling with some underlying psychological issues that needed addressing. Resolving to broach the topic of counseling later that evening, I proceeded to shower, hoping to wash away the tension of the day. After a refreshing shower, I returned to the bedroom to dress, only to discover Caroline packing her belongings into the empty suitcases. Inquiring about her sudden actions, she retorted that since I refused to leave, she would instead. Apparently, while I was showering, she had contacted her sister, arranging to stay with her. My attempt to rationalize her behavior by attributing it to pregnancy hormones was met with vehement rejection. Despite my certainty that her pregnancy was impacting her reactions, she angrily dismissed my explanation. I reassured myself that once she gave birth and my secretary's twins came home, she would embrace motherhood with grace. Confused by her sudden departure, I watched as she left an hour later, leaving me bewildered and unsure of what to do next. A couple of days later, I made the decision to move Eva into my house. With her pregnancy and Caroline's departure, it felt like the right thing to do. After all, the twins were mine, and Eva needed support during this time. However, my plans were abruptly interrupted when I was served with divorce papers a week later. Caroline was seeking ownership of the house, 18 years of maintenance, alimony for those unfamiliar with the term, 90% of our savings and investments, and $1,500 a month in child support. In essence, she was fully enforcing our prenuptial agreement, particularly the clause pertaining to infidelity. Yes, I was well aware of its existence. 3 months later. What the hell? My wife Caroline's voice pierced the tense atmosphere of the lawyer's office, marking our first meeting to discuss our impending divorce. As we sat across from each other, I couldn't help but acknowledge that Caroline had a potent tool at her disposal, our meticulously crafted prenuptial agreement, designed to make infidelity sting deeply. And with ample evidence of my indiscretions, she had every reason to wield it mercilessly. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but question her resolve. "Are you really sure you want to go down this path, Caroline?" I inquired, hoping for a glimmer of hesitation. Her response was swift and unforgiving. "You cheated on me. You got your secretary pregnant and had the nerve to think I would agree to raise her children," she retorted, her words laced with indignation and betrayal. "Caroline, right here, right now, I'm presenting you with a one-time offer," I declared, my tone resolute. "We call off the divorce, reconcile, and raise all 3 children together as our own. We leave the past behind and commit to each other once more. These 3 babies will be solely ours. Yes, Eva will play a role as the favored aunt to the twins, but that's as far as it goes. You'll be the loving mother to all 3, and I'll be the devoted father. And who knows, maybe we'll even have 1 or 2 more. The decision is yours. Yes or no." "Damn you. I'm not going to raise any of your children with that woman," Caroline spat back, her anger palpable. I exchanged a knowing look with my lawyer, affirming our understanding. Fortunately for me, I had retained the most formidable, ruthless, and determined legal representation money could buy. While it might seem as though I'm painted as the villain, eager for my comeuppance, hold on to your judgment. It's about to get interesting. My lawyer unfurled her briefcase with a grin reminiscent of a barracuda poised for a feeding frenzy. "Since your client has declined my client's generous offer, here is our new proposal," she announced, sliding the papers across the table. It took a few moments for Caroline and her lawyer to read and comprehend the document. That's when Caroline erupted as described earlier. As their smug expressions morphed into panic, I could swear Agata, my lawyer, practically salivated with anticipation. Yes, she was truly ruthless. Caroline's lawyer turned to her, his expression one of sheer panic. "DNA testing," Caroline stammered. "Absolutely," I confirmed. With another nod at Agata, she produced an audio recorder and placed it on the table, her finger hovering over the record button. "So, how are you making sure it's going to be my kid and not the Cox?" The voice on the recording belonged to Martin Hill, a lawyer at the firm where Caroline worked. "No problem," Caroline's voice responded confidently. "You look enough like my husband that he'll never know he's raising your child." "Good. Just as long as he raises my kid right. I have no intention of having to pay for or deal with kids myself. I do like the idea of having a kid to eventually pass along my inheritance to, but it'll have to be after they've become an adult. When the kid turns 18, we can let them know who their real father is. That way, I won't have to pay a dime to raise them. Trust me, Jack will never know until we tell your child in 18 years. Then it'll be too late. He and I will have a few more children together by then, and he won't be able to do anything about it without being completely screwed." "So, you're sure your husband won't find out about us?" Martin Hill's voice echoed through the recording. "We've been having an affair for the last 3 years, and he hasn't had a clue. You look enough like him that any kid we have will resemble him closely enough that he'll never suspect it isn't his. We'll be fine," Caroline's voice replied confidently. The expression on Caroline's face when the recording played was priceless. Agata then passed over a motion to have Caroline's fetus DNA tested and another motion to sue Martin Hill for child support, requesting $2,000 a month. Given his success as an attorney, it seemed a reasonable ask. "All right, since your client rejected the last proposal, here's the new one. It'll require a post-nuptial agreement signed by both parties. The divorce proceedings will cease, and the couple will remain married until the last child graduates from high school at a minimum. If they both agree, they can choose to continue their marriage. The postnup will retain terms from the prenup, but with a few adjustments. Firstly, the marriage will become open, allowing my client to pursue other relationships as long as he informs his wife beforehand. The same applies to the wife. Any children conceived thereafter will be solely the responsibility of the married couple. However, any children conceived accidentally, regardless of whether carried to full term or aborted, will trigger the terms of the postnup," Agata concluded. I observed as Caroline's complexion drained of color, her shock palpable as her affair was laid bare. Agata's smile took on a predatory edge as she pressed forward. In the event your client rejects this proposal, we are fully prepared to enforce the prenuptial agreement on our end, Agata stated firmly. Her affair commenced nearly 3 years prior to my client's indiscretion. In fact, he only embarked on his affair after meticulously documenting his wife's betrayal and her intention to conceive another man's child. Should she pursue divorce, she should anticipate being left destitute, without a home or financial security. Furthermore, all her acquaintances will be provided with evidence, videotapes depicting her engagement with a man who is not her husband. We are prepared to take drastic measures to ensure her complete ruin. Caroline glanced at me, signaling her readiness for me to speak. Caroline, you schemed for me to raise another man's child. While the baby inside you is innocent in this deceit, I refuse to bear the responsibility for your actions. However, I am willing to accept the child into our home as a stepchild, provided your lover assumes financial responsibility. He will cover monthly child support, health insurance, medical expenses, and education. Though I doubt he'll seek visitation, it will be available if desired. He will also fund the child's college education. That is the cost of his actions. He may have claimed to shun parenthood, but he will now bear its weight. As for you, your consequence for betrayal is to raise my children as your own. They'll be yours in every way except biologically. Only those in this room and Eva will know the truth. You found it amusing to have me raise another man's child. Now you'll find irony in raising another woman's children. You'll also welcome Eva into our home when she desires to visit the children. That is your penance. You dare to seek divorce over my infidelity while carrying on a lengthy affair yourself. How hypocritical. My affair only ensued after uncovering your betrayal. I heard your plans to have another man's child while ensuring it wasn't mine. Eva was willing to bear my children, provided she wasn't left to raise them alone. 18.5 years later. You mean Aunt Eva is really? Diana's voice faltered. But what about Uncle Nat? Laura interjected. Yes, Eva had twins. Diana was born a minute before Laura. Donnie, Caroline's son, came into the picture 3 days earlier. There were more than a few surprised faces when we introduced the triplets to our friends and family. Eventually, everyone came to accept it, though there were some curious remarks about where Diana and Laura's red hair originated. Those pesky recessive genes. No, your Uncle Nat came later. Your Aunt Eva became pregnant while she was single, and she believed that it would be best for you two to be raised by a married couple. Since we were close friends, I agreed to adopt you both, as she wasn't in a position to raise you alone at that time. By the time she met and married your Uncle Nat, it would have been too difficult to change things. Now that you both know the truth, understand that your mom and I love you just as much as if you were our biological children. Nothing has changed in that regard. Also, remember that your aunt and uncle have their own family. You'll always hold a special place in their hearts, but that doesn't alter the fact that we're all family here, I concluded. They were intelligent kids. Would they comprehend? Did we truly need to disclose? Perhaps, perhaps not. There were valid points on both sides. Ultimately, we decided they should know, so we shared the truth. We also revealed to Donnie that I wasn't his biological father. That was a different conversation. He'd never crossed paths with the scoundrel. The scoundrel attempted to contest the paternity suit, but DNA doesn't lie. He tried to evade payment, but judges tend to frown upon such defiance. They also have the means to enforce their rulings through sheriff's deputies, who can pay unwelcome visits to individuals at their homes and workplaces. As for the notion of an open marriage, I did have a few more encounters with Janice and Eva, and I dated for about a year until she met Nat. Regarding Caroline, I'm fairly certain she never strayed. I kept a close watch, though. Once Eva and I concluded our affair, I refrained from pursuing others. I presumed Caroline had learned from the experience, and I made it clear I'd resume if I detected any signs of infidelity. As far as I could discern, she remained faithful, and I monitored closely. Moreover, she endeavored to foster a bond where I relied solely on her, which worked both ways. Martin Hill vanished shortly after Jack's 18th birthday. He had already established a college fund for Jack, but despite our offer of visitation, Martin showed no interest. Speculation circulated that he relocated to the East Coast, though a more reliable rumor placed him just 5 miles beyond the coastline. Of course, this particular tidbit remained confined to a select few. Patience was my virtue when it came to settling scores. I couldn't allow him to evade child support and college fund payments. As for Caroline and me, it's been 19 years since our turbulent ordeal. I diligently conducted my investigations and found no evidence of further indiscretions. Remarkably, she evolved into a devoted wife and mother. Contemplating early retirement once the kids depart the nest seems plausible. Some might deem me weak for forgiving her, but what good would scorching her yield? Perhaps Eva and I could have pursued a relationship, but it's irrelevant now. What matters is I wasn't ensnared in raising another man's child. Though I played the role of father, I viewed it differently. Martin footed the bill for raising him, while I seized the chance to ensure he was raised with integrity, steering clear of becoming another scoundrel. Furthermore, by remaining with Caroline, I ensured our 3 children were nurtured in a loving environment with both parents, a triumph surpassing external judgment. Epilogue. It's been another 10 years. This is my confession. I'll be honest, as I sit here and reflect on my actions in the past, I can't help but feel regret. Years later, I realized that adultery is an insidious path, fraught with pain and consequences that reverberate far beyond the moment of the careless act. Even innocent people can suffer because of it. In my case, children. My affair with Janice and the subsequent exposure of Caroline's betrayal shook the foundations of our marriage, leaving scars that took years to heal. Looking back, I realized the folly of my actions, the selfishness that blinded me to the pain I had caused my wife and family. Yes, my wife committed sin too, but I speak for myself now. I am haunted by the realization that my momentary weakness caused irreparable damage to the trust and intimacy we once shared. Caroline's forgiveness and our eventual reconciliation were not without difficulties. The road to rebuilding our relationship was long and difficult, marked by moments of doubt and uncertainty. But I guess it had to be. Our children, who are grown and thriving on their own, make me happy and give me inner strength. Despite all the turmoil of raising them, they are thriving, their spirits unbroken by their parents' mistakes. I am overwhelmed with pride as I watch their accomplishments, and their laughter is a balm to the wounds of the past. As I look to the future, I can only hope that they will learn from my mistakes, that they will cherish the sacred vows of marriage and honor the trust of their partners. May they never succumb to the temptations that led me astray. May they forge relationships built on honesty, respect, and unwavering devotion. In the end, I am grateful for the second chance I've been given, for the opportunity to right the wrongs of my past and embrace the blessings of my present. And though the scars of my transgressions may never fully fade, I take solace in the knowledge that redemption is possible, that love, true and unconditional, has the power to conquer even the darkest of sins. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.